Hey everyone, how's it going? So, first of all, I'm sorry for not making a video. It's been like a week. I've been like doing other stuff, so I didn't really have the time or motivation to make videos. But here I am. And I just want to tell you that first, I've had a couple of beers, so I might talk a bit weirdly or like definitely the normal might be like slurring or something a bit more. So yeah. So when was the last video I made? I believe it was in Salzburg, right? At the top of the hill. Shit, it's been like more than a week now. Okay, so anyways, um, so let's start off with Salzburg, I guess. It was, I really like the city, even though it's a small place. It's really charming. So the day after I made that video, I was supposed to leave for Munich, but since I still had a couple places I wanted to see, I decided to take an evening bus instead of a like morning or afternoon bus like I do usually, so I could go see a few more places. So I went to see the Leopold Skron Palace and Gardens, which was featured in the Sound of Music film, which I really like. But there was honestly not that much to see there, so yeah, it was kind of disappointing, but oh well. Then I went to see the Helbrunn Palace. That was much more interesting. They had like really like special designs of like fountains. Yeah, I don't want to get too much into detail, but if you look it up, you'll see. And they also had the gazebo in the Sound of Music video, which is an iconic scene. Okay, so after Salzburg, I went to Munich, and oh, okay, that was Munich was really a really interesting experience. So all the hostels in the city center were like either really expensive or like not that great. So I decided to try something new. There was a hostel called the Tent Munich, and it was really cheap, like 12 euros a night or something. And but basically it's not a hostel. It's like just a huge tent with like 200 people, and you sleep in there. Okay, so that sounds alright, right? Well, it wasn't that bad, but sorry. The first night I went there, it was like so fucking cold. I went to bed at like 1 a.m. because I got there pretty late, and they have like a bonfire, which is really cool. And I chatted with some people, and yeah. So at 1 a.m., and Munich is like, it gets pretty cold at night, especially that day because it was raining the day before, I think, or something. But it was like 7 or 8 degrees or something. And basically, the tent is not really like, it doesn't have heating or like isolation. What you call it? Basically, it's like cold inside, like almost as cold as outside. And so even with like three bed sheets that they give you, it's still pretty cold. Like your face is like freezing, and yeah. But overall, it was all right. I mean, uh, other than that, it was pretty much like a normal hostel. There were lockers. Oh, there was one thing that was kind of annoying. I kept waking up like at 6 a.m. or something because I kept drinking too much beer the night before. So I kept waking up, and you have to like get out of your bed, get out of the tent, walk like 2 minutes to get to the washroom. And like you just don't feel like it because you're warm in your bed, and as soon as you get out, it's like freezing. But yeah, I guess that's kind of my problem, but whatever. Anyways, yeah, the bonfire was really nice. It helped me like meet new people. I met some people that live in Berlin. They're studying here, and actually, uh, I met up with them yesterday because right now I'm in Berlin. I'll talk to you about that later. Anyways, Munich, it's there's not that many like tourist attractions. There's just like a couple of things to see, like churches and palaces and stuff. But there's not that much to do. Everyone just drinks beer there. That's pretty much the culture. I mean, that's all right. I like it too. Yeah, I went to like the beer garden there, which is like their type of drinking establishment, I guess, which is pretty cool. I only stayed there for 2 nights, so I don't have that much to see. Oh yeah, their metro system is pretty messy. Like in Berlin, also, all the German, well, these two cities I've been to, the metro is like so complicated. There's like the S-Bahn and the U-Bahn, which is like two different um two different kind of subways, but actually one isn't a subway, it's more like a train. But anyways, it's just really complicated to navigate. I mean, you can get used to it, but like if you're just a tourist, it's pretty confusing. Anyways, after Munich, I went to Prague. Okay, so Prague. Everyone told me, like literally everyone who has been there told me like, oh, Prague is like the best place like ever. It's like so beautiful, and like everything is so fucking cheap. Well, okay. So don't get me wrong, Prague is like a really beautiful and definitely a place you should visit in the course of your life. Like it's a really good place to travel to, but I don't think it's the best place ever. Like people usually say, like don't get me wrong, it's not a bad city by any means, but I was just like given too high expectations, and it didn't live up to the hype. So yeah, but yeah, I have to agree that Prague is really beautiful. The architecture there is really, how to describe it. It's like really colorful, and um, yeah, I don't know what else to say. It kind of feels like Budapest, um, because there's like a river in the middle, and the west side of the river is like there's a castle, and then south of the castle there's like a hill. It's like so similar, it's almost creepy. Like the hill is the top, the highest point of the city, and the east side of the river is like most of the city, but like it's flat. There's nothing much going on. Well, there the most of the city is there, like the old town, but there's not like castles or whatever there. Um, so yeah, it's kind of like Budapest, but actually Budapest was much cheaper than Prague. In the touristy areas, Prague was actually like pretty much as expensive as like Austria or Germany or like Portugal or something. Which is like cheaper than most places, I guess, but definitely not the cheapest. In the non-touristy areas, it's somewhat cheaper, but I haven't been there much, so I can't really say. But I can say that in Hungary, the non-tourist areas were much cheaper than the non-tourist areas in Prague. So, anyways, if not about the price, Prague was pretty nice. The food, so not many people talk about Czech food, right? It's not really like a known thing. But I looked online, and so I just read all the recommendations, and there were so many of them, and I just tried to find as many places as I could to try as many different local foods, and there are a lot of them, so I couldn't even try all everything on my list. But yeah, I learned a lot of new foods. Yeah, they have like this thing called fried cheese, which is like basically a mozzarella stick. You know, like those cheese sticks that you fry and they become like stringy. But in Prague, it's basically instead of a stick, it's like a flat thing. It's like like these chicken burgers. It's like a breaded chicken thing, but instead it's cheese and it's like mozzarella. So it's not melted or anything. Just when you eat it, it's like there's like a cheese string, which is pretty cool. I never thought of anything like that. The person who invented it must have been like must have had a lot of imaginations. But yeah. Oh yeah. In Prague. So one thing was that the beer was really cheap. That was a thing that was like exceptionally cheap. So in even in like restaurants, like formal restaurants, well, not formal restaurants, like casual restaurants, but like sit down restaurants, beers were like basically the equivalent of like 1.5 euro, I guess, which is not that much at all. If you compare it to other places, it's at least like 3 or 2.5 or something euros. So yeah. And if you buy it at like a corner store, it's like basically like 1 euro or something like that. Depends on the beer, of course. The one I really liked is Pilsner Urquell. So Pilsner beer is like originally from Czech Republic, I think. Uh, and yeah, that one is like the only one that's allowed to be called Pilsner there. Uh, yeah. And the other beers are pretty good also, but I only tried one other one. Uh, and I preferred the Pilsner, even though the Pilsner is more expensive. So yeah, and some of the beers in the supermarket, like, it's not chilled. It's like, it's on a shelf. It's not in the fridge, but I found some as cheap as like 25 euro cents, which is ridiculous. Like, you don't get any close to that like anywhere else. I think in Germany there's some for like 50 cents or something, but yeah, 25 cents for a beer is pretty ridiculous. And it's like 500 milliliters also. It's not like those 300 milliliters beer. So yeah, I definitely drank a lot of beer there. Even though I'm not that big of a beer person, but Czech beer was pretty good. Um, oh, and yeah, one thing about Prague is there were so many tourists there. Like, I think it's pretty comparable to Paris. Remember when I talked about Paris? I said there were just tourists all over the place. In Rome, the tourists are more concentrated in like the tourist attractions, like monuments and stuff. But in Paris and Prague, tourists are just everywhere, and especially in Prague, most of the tourists are like Chinese or Korean or something, like Asians, uh, like from China or South Korea. But like there was a ridiculous amount of Koreans. Like, I haven't seen that many Koreans like ever. It was basically like Korea. Um, but yeah. So what else about Prague? Uh, I don't have that much to say. Uh, oh yeah, my hostel was like, it was a good hostel. It was really clean, safe, good facilities. The only thing uh, was that it was a pretty small hostel. It was basically like not even on a building of its own. It was in an apartment, and uh, so the hostel was basically a big apartment, but like a single apartment, and so it was pretty small. Well, it wasn't small. Like, you had space. There was a common room which was the living room, and like the rooms were large. There were a lot of washrooms, and there was a kitchen and everything. It's not a big place like for a hostel. You know what I mean? Uh, I think there were only 20 beds in total, and so basically there was like no one to hang around with. If you went to the living room, there was like just one of the staffs there. There was like nothing much going on. Um, so for a city that's so huge on like nightlife and stuff, there honestly I couldn't really find anyone to go out with in the evenings or at night. So it was kind of boring for me. I mean, I still uh, went out and wandered around by myself, but it's just not as fun when you don't have company, you know. And actually had a friend I met in Budapest, and we stayed at the same hostel in Vienna. And he was in Prague at the same time, but unfortunately, we tried to meet and it never happened, so that sucks. But yeah, whatever, it's okay. So after Prague, I'm in Berlin, which is I went to Berlin. I mean, which is where I am right now. Um, so I've only been here for I got here last evening, and so I've basically only been here a day. But as far as I can tell, this is like one of the best cities ever. Like, uh, I don't know how to like describe it. I guess it's more. It just has a different vibe from like everywhere else because it's if you know Berlin's history, there's like the Cold War, which separated the city in two, and like one part of the city is well was and still is kind of different from the other. The east side is more like less like westernized, developed, but there's a lot of like hipster shit. Like all the young people go there. Like nightlife and stuff, and there's a lot of graffiti. Basically, it's like not as modern, but more modern in its own way. I'm not sure how to explain it, but basically, Berlin is just a city with a really interesting history to it. Um, so I went, yeah. So I met some of the friends that I met in Munich yesterday. We just hung out. It was really a good time. Today I just mostly visited. I spent like so much time at the Museum of DDR, which is basically communist East Germany. I spent like 3 hours there. It's like a pretty small place, but everything there is so interesting. So I I really loved it. And then I went to what's it called? The Topography of Terror, which is also kind of a museum, but it's outdoors. Um, yeah, I spent like I spent like 2 hours there. I didn't even finish the whole thing because they actually kicked me out. Well, not they it like they closed at 8 p.m. But like it's an outdoors place. Like why would you close? I don't get it. But anyways, really interesting. If you're interested in like history and stuff, like World War II, Cold War and stuff. Yeah, so I'm going back there tomorrow, and I went to a couple other places, just like landmarks or monuments, I guess. And there's so much to do in Berlin. It's a really large city, as you know. Um, you have to get to everywhere by metro. You can't like walk, as it was the case in like some of the cities. But yeah, Berlin is awesome. I met a lot of people who used to live somewhere else, and they moved there and they fucking love it. They're like it's paradise. It's such a good place for young people to like start a business or just like it's a really fun place. So yeah, after Berlin, I only have three places left. Well, two places technically. Amsterdam and Brussels, and from Brussels, I'm gonna make a day trip to Ghent, which is another city in Brussels, and Belgium. Sorry. Then I'm going back to Paris for my flight. So there's really not that much time anymore. Uh, I'm gonna make sure I make the most out of it. Yeah, so far, the Europe trip has been fucking amazing, even though I had some mishaps along the way, but it's a fine. Uh, so yeah, Berlin. I'm so looking forward to exploring more tomorrow and after tomorrow. So yeah, thanks for watching this long ass video, and I'll see you later.